で僕が
拾ってる音ってちゃんと来てます。あ、来てます。はい。チャットも入ってないです。あ、本当に。
Well, welcome everybody to this interesting format. I wasn't expecting to be looking inwards, but I hope that this dynamic suits us all. We are going to have a fantastically dynamic meeting, and my name is Chris Chinyern. I'm from the Association of Pacific Rim Universities, and our topic today is our hyperconnected world, problems, issues and implications. And I should say that one of the implications I noted from Prime Minister Abe's speech about preparing cybersecurity for the Olympics is that he momentarily forgot that the year before is the Rugby World Cup. So as a New Zealander, I need to put that in. Moving on, though, to this topic, the structure of this session will be a few comments from me on the theme. Then we will have a distinguished speaker for 10 minutes. And then we have a panel of distinguished people to comment on some of the key issues. There will be 3 rounds of questions, which they will debate. And then we will have opening to the floor for your input and your questions. So let's keep this moving along. We have 90 minutes. And just to make a few observations on the theme, the challenge of this particular session is to go both broader and deeper on the questions that was covered in the opening session, to see how we see ourselves both in business, government, academia, and in the community, how we see ourselves as part of the hyperconnectivity of the future, what that means for us, not simply in our own sector, but across sectors. So we're looking at the future. And many of you will know of Jim Martin, one of the key people in the first decades of information technology and the internet, who's now passed on, but he endowed the Oxford Martin Institute at Oxford, and the 2 observations that he made in one of his opening speeches at that institute was that the 21st century will be marked by 2 things. One is increasing innovation far beyond anything we've seen to date. Things are already in the pipeline, and that was referred to this morning. And the second thing is social and political turbulence and the totally unknown outcome of the 21st century and how those 2 will interact. So when it comes to our topic today, we need to keep that in mind. And we also need to keep in mind that the World Economic Forum and the IMF have talked a lot about risk, and we heard about that a little this morning, but the main risk they have noted is in addition to all those you know about, is that of social and economic inequality and turbulence. So we need to map that into our discussions. So in terms of the themes that we're going to deal with more directly this morning, we're going to look at the future of the internet and the Internet of Things. We're going to talk about how connectivity is driving business models and what are the new models we need. And we're going to talk about what is the education that we need in all sectors about the future of the internet and where it's going. So this is a fascinating discussion. We look forward to interacting with you on it. And it is now my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Toshinori Kajiura. Where is he? Please come, sir, take a seat. Oh, you need that? Who's going to talk to us for 10 minutes. He is chair of the Cybersecurity Working Group of the Japan Business Federation, Keidanren. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today I got the chance to introduce you to cyber security for critical infrastructures. It's a great honor for me. My name is Kajiura, the chair of Cybersecurity Working Group of Keidanren. Keidanren is the Japan Business Federation. It has 39 policy meetings. One of them is the information telecommunication policy. It has 4 working groups. One is the cybersecurity working group. 29 leading companies joined to working group. We made the initial proposal at February this year. At first, the threat of cyber attack and cybercrime are limited in the internet world. We think the ICT system, which separated from the internet, For example, ATMs, banking system, and traffic ticket reservation systems. But they have security against cyber attack. But several cases occurred which the virus invaded through USB and other devices. We should consider about ICT systems separated from internet. Then, additionally, the era of IoT has come. Construction machines and factory automation systems and cars will be connected to internet. Defended target will increase on leaps and bounds. Then, at last, especially critical infrastructures, for example, energy, traffic, finance, and so on, are also defended targets. We can consider attacks to infrastructures and control systems a great threat for our economic activities. When we started cybersecurity working group, we had three common understanding. First, serious cyber attacks on their rise. The attack is larger in scale gradually, and state participation is also suspected. Second, attackers always have an upper hand. It's difficult to pinpoint attacker, and defenders' ability to launch counterattack is limited. Additionally, new security holes and attack methods are being devised all the time. The last, industries are taking a leading role in security, although huge problems remain. The company cannot protect themselves from large-scale systematic attacks single-handedly. And if critical infrastructures go down, it becomes difficult for a nation to maintain basic administrable functions. A half of initial proposal is to Japanese government. The government should take a leading role in defending critical infrastructures against cyber attack. Second half is to industries itself. We should recognize cybersecurity as an important issue of management. The initial proposal has 9 issues. First is an enhancement of information sharing. As a defending side, incident information is most useful as information sharing among divisions, companies, and stakeholders is so important, but it is difficult actually. A company sometimes fears to make trouble by offering information. And then we want a mechanism to exchange information surely. Second is implementation training. We want to perform joint drills in public and private sector. Even if the mechanism of information sharing and manual or corresponding exists, they are not in use without training. Third is technology development and system operation. We need revolution of defense technology to detect signs of imminent attack and SWOT attack, trace attack, and share information. Fourth is enhancement of human resources. We think 200,000 engineers or more are lacking in Japan now. We will ensure adequate provision of personnel through cooperation among government, industries, and universities. Fifth is promotion of international cooperation. Cyber attack has no border. We wish Japanese government make a leading role of international relations about cyber security. At first, we want a mechanism of information sharing with overseas counterparts. And also, we want Japanese government try to make development of global system that can trace and pinpoint the source of an attack and launch a counterattack. That should be maybe called Cyber Interpol. At last, industry-wide efforts are needed. Industry should take a leading role in cybersecurity. Then industry needs revolution of sense. There are 4 challenges for us. We should recognize cybersecurity as the most important aspect of management. The appropriate investment for cybersecurity is required. We should improve awareness at management level, restructure and train personnel. For example, management puts the internal ICT division at the place near himself. We should promote information sharing and discussion among industry sectors. And we should support lectures on cybersecurity at universities or other educational organizations. After publishing this proposal, much response has come from government, universities, and also industries. But we are not satisfied. Cybersecurity is a huge issue. We have just arrived at an entrance of the issue. Our second proposal, we concentrate to 3 issues. Information sharing is so important, and we want a mechanism to exchange information surely. Then we consider the ideal relationship between public and private sectors. We have telecom, ISAC, and finance, ISAC. There are successful schemes in Japan. We want to apply the schemes to another industry sectors. And also information sharing among sectors is important. We consider the inter-industry schemes. Development and utilization personnel are a big issue. We now research the skills of cybersecurity engineer demanded by industries. And we think the open and fair evaluation method of personnel is needed. By the method, a management who does not know detail of cybersecurity can organize cybersecurity team and manage them. Usually, cybersecurity engineer is an occupation of younger generation, and they often require hard work over labor regulation. We should consider about employees' career and treatment. The career path of cybersecurity engineer will be a social scheme. We want to discuss about the role of government, universities, and industries. In 2020, Japan is a big event, Tokyo Olympics and Paralympics Games. We should develop highly secure systems and technology for the event. We believe cybersecurity should contribute not only the safe of critical infrastructures, but also world economic growth. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much for that presentation. It raised many of the issues. And I'd now like to move on to introduce our panel to you. Ross Fowler, Vice President for Digital Transformation and IOE Acceleration, Cisco Asia Pacific and Japan. Soichiro Murata, Director Internet of Things, Fourth Industrial Revolution, SAP, Japan. Giuseppe Tagia, if I pronounce it, Tagia, Vice President, Security Business Unit, Nokia. And Professor Jun Marai, Dean and Professor of Faculty of Environment and Information Studies at Keio University. So we have a very distinguished panel, focused, I think, in terms of your capabilities, very much on the nature of the Internet of Things, what the future is, and what are the big issues in front of us. So I'd like to start with that and say, look, how should we think about the Internet of Things now? And if you'd each give us 1 minute on that, starting with Ross.
Yeah, there's no doubt that more and more things are being connected to the internet. Today we have about 15 billion things connected. The expectation is by the time the Olympics come, there are going to be 50 billion. But from my experience in dealing with customers around the region, they're not connecting things just as a curiosity. It's because there's a business imperative, and that business imperative is that every organisation is going to be digital in the future. And for them to be digital, they need to be connecting things with people, with process and data to ensure their organisations can capture the opportunities from digitalisation. In fact, not just capturing the opportunities, there are enormous threats. Our studies have shown that out of the top 10 companies in each market right now, over the next 5 years, 4 will be displaced because they haven't captured the opportunity.
Thanks very much. Professor Barone.
Okay, when the evolution of the internet, when we are looking at, and then it's connecting the computers, and then all the users on the computers, they're going to be connected, and then the IoT is the Internet of Things, and then the things can generate the data. So probably the most important aspect of the IoT is that when we are talking about IoT, then we suddenly start talking about the medical devices and the automobile transportation and the agriculture devices even, and then that means that all the vertical space and then the IoT, internet, ICT is kind of covering a certain part of the society, but then when it turns out to be an Internet of Things, then it's going to be extending to the much more, probably all of the area of the society and the industry now. So then connecting the data is on a kind of horizontal stream, moving around those areas. So those are combinations of the vertical and the horizontal society. It's going to be a very strong impact of the IoT.
Thank you so much. Soichiro.
Hi, my name is Suichiro Murata from SAP Japan, and SAP as a German software company. There's a couple of interest toward us as a software company. First, the rise of the industry 4.0 in German manufacturing industry is highly center of the focus in Japanese industry as well. But actually, it is not limited to the manufacturing industry at all. And actually, my position right now, the IoT/fourth industrial revolution, is really tell the thing that we consider that IoT is really the enabler of fourth industrial revolution, which is come from first, second, and third, and then the fourth. We are in the race of the fourth industrial revolution, so it will have a very significant impact, not only manufacturing industry, but all other industries, because IoT actually erased the boundary between the manufacturing and non-manufacturing. And actually, it's every industry is impacted by the IoT. So the positive side is huge, and also we have to be very careful about the negative side as well. But in overall, everybody is looking at in future potential of the IoT.
Okay, so this morning Brian said, everything that is connected is hackable, everything is connected, everything is hackable, right? So everything is connected, and what is connected, what is connecting everything is the network. Today, the internet, and tomorrow will be the internet that will be mainly wireless. Today we use 4G, tomorrow we will use 5G. So what is really important is to understand that what is connecting the different device is not just a dumb pipe. What is connecting the different device is a live organism that need to be protected and need to contribute to protect the different element of the network. So the network itself is a player in this IoT game, and that's what I would like to explore today a little bit more.
Thank you. Well, out of that very interesting input on the future of the Internet of Things rises one of the points that, actually Nick Gowing raised. What are the unthinkables that might come from this development? And you mentioned, Soichiro, the negative and positive things that might come. I wondered if I could ask the panel, in terms of a multi-stakeholder dialogue, what is the most useful way in which that should be advanced to make sure that society realizes more of the benefits than the negative side of the Internet of Things? That in fact we don't just reproduce what is already an unequal system, but we use the the benefits of the hyper-connectivity to the broader benefit of society? It's an easy question for us.
Well, and this could be seen as a possible black swan too. We heard this morning about how through the advent of cloud, things could be made more secure in this sort of environment. But we're also seeing a trend where when you're connecting billions of devices, you actually can't get all the data to the cloud, and there now needs to be this concept of fault computing where processing is put at the edge as well. And one of the things I worry about, if we're relying on security in the cloud and fault comes along, are we really preparing to address those challenges of security with edge computing?
Can I comment on this? Because when we talk about the cloud, we always think about something that is central, a unit in the core. Cloud will be distributed. If you look at the sky, clouds are everywhere. Cloud will go from the edge to the core of the network. The network in the future will be a seamless cloud. Mobile edge computing that Ross was referring to will be, and the cloud run, will be all cloudified. So there is really no distinction between core and edge. There will be a single distributed cloud ranging from the access to the core.
But as it is today, the cloud is sitting in data centers. As you know, in the future, it's not going to be all sitting within a protected data center.
Absolutely.
That's the challenge.
Yeah, if we want to control IoT with the speed we want, we need to distribute intelligence close to the device.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, hearing all the presentation this morning, we just came to the understand that cybersecurity is really a huge issue, but it has been a huge issue for the last 10 years maybe, and we are already in a significant threat. So I think that the point for this discussion is that what IoT, the connected things, will bring additional security in addition to the already being there for a long time. And I think that there is a couple of different aspects. One is that because it's the things, so it's a physical thing. In other words, the information that's going back to the thing can be a threat or dangerous. For example, like automated driver car. So in other words, this is one of the things that we have to consider in the future. And also another thing is that not only the one information, but the collective information. For example, like the Nissan car is all connected in the near future, and we know that what is the traffic flow in the particular Okinawa cities. In other words, as a collecting information of IoT can be also a threat for the Internet of Things. And I don't think that there's only the two, but there's so many other aspects that I want to discuss, and I want to maybe hear from the audience that what is the threat for the IoT part of the Internet security.
Yeah, one of the point I have a little bit of a concern when I was listening to the other morning discussion when we are talking about the kind of risk threats about the internet, IoT, and everything. And the point is here. Okay, so we already discussed even in this panel that the kind of a future possibility and the benefit of the kind of IoT, connected globally. And then we also did discuss about the risk and the fear, threats of the connected world. Anyway, but if we are listening to all those discussions carefully, then we can be very specific about what is the risk, right? Because we're gonna create this amount of loss. And then this, if those information leaked, then the damage is going to be this, big type of a thing. This is very much of the existing status of when we are talking about the risk. But what about when we are talking about the future benefit of the connected world of the IoT? Then do we really, discuss about that? What is the projected benefit of when all the data, go to be shared, information to be shared, and then what kind of a benefit we can create, and then the comparison has to be, to be the same kind of timeline, and then compare. Otherwise, it's not very much fair, right?
I think we should put that question to the others in the panel. Would you like to come back on that question? What are the future benefits and how to measure the risk?
Yeah, well, I'll make a start. Well, from my experience, the customers already understand the benefits. And, you know, sometimes you do a business case because you're not convinced that you need to do it. But customers are finding it so compelling because the end consumers are already connected and they're driving their own organisations to become digital. In the manufacturing sector, customers are putting demands on customisation of their products in very short lead times, and the manufacturers can only do that if they connect their machines and have them automated with, you know, predictive maintenance and things like that. So I think the business case is the end user demand is driving customers to do it.
Right, but think about 20 years ago, right? When we were talking about how the social benefit of the internet, it was really difficult to project, right? And then it's kind of a tremendous amount of the benefit actually we got. So what do we think about the kind of future possible benefit of the IoT?
Well, the IoT is really the connection, the interconnection of between things. Things not necessarily means like a material thing, the hardware, but also like a processes, benefits, capabilities. So the Internet of Everything, what Cisco said, is pretty accurate. But by interconnecting everything digitally, and what the digital really means? Digital is actually the flow of the electronics, or just a bit on and off. So the point is that digital is very fast, super fast compared to the physical world. In other words, we should take advantage of this super fast processing capability attached with physical world, so that we can even maximize the capacity or maybe minimize the gap between the two things, for example. So I think that there is no choice that our physical world or business world do not take advantage of digital. So that actually the point is that we can fill the gap that exists in the physical world right now by utilizing the digital capability.
So I think that, like happened for internet, the market itself will demonstrate that Internet of Things is the way to go. What I believe is that what we have to understand, and go back to the topic of the conference, is what are the enabler and what are the showstopper for Internet of Things. Because if there are no showstopper, this will obviously increase dramatically. So it's not a matter if it's interesting or not, it's what we have to do to avoid it become dangerous and not only useful. And with internet, we have intelligent people behind the network, people that, for example, upgrade their device, people that know what to do. In the case of Internet of Things, we have potentially many, many zombies in the network connected. So I think it's not really relevant to understand what's the benefit, because this will anyhow, happen. It's really important to understand how to regulate things in a way that at the end the system will not collapse because of lack of security.
Yeah, I think that's a very important, touching the very important point that, when we are kind of, designing the internet, then it's kind of pretty transparent what's going on from a technology point of view, which is very much helpful for the, thinking about the protecting the network type of a thing, and what is possible, what is impossible, and what is, we have to work on, that kind of thing. But then, it's like an iceberg, a big, huge iceberg, and only the surface is tiny ice, and then the below the surface is a huge ice, and then now the internet becoming to that huge ice part, which is very much kind of black box to the most of the people who are working on internet and internet businesses these days. That is a different, as you mentioned, when we are discussing the internet versus now we are talking about the IoT. So that's certainly one of the characteristics of the discussion today, I believe.
Thank you. And if I understood one or two of the comments correctly, there's not a lot of confidence amongst this panel that business leaders currently using the opportunities of the Internet of Things to its full capability. And I wondered whether any of you would like to comment on how that should be done, or how could business leaders and others learn from each other on how to do that.
I think it depends on the industry. I think if we look at financial services, retail, media, they understand it because they're in the middle of this digital disruption now. I think other verticals, for example manufacturing, have to go through a number of steps first, that they need to get that basic connectivity in a secure way done first. That then provides them with a platform for digitization. So I think it's very hard to generalize. You need to look sector by sector.
I think it will play a very important role in industry collaboration and standardization in the IoT space. I mean, we as Nokia launched just 2 days ago an industry collaboration for IoT in order to create some standardization and open interface in the IoT space. And also the network, I mean, need to follow certain standards. The advantage is that it's not fragmented like the IoT or security space. The players in networks are very few. So it's easier to drive certain standard with a uniform view. But it's extremely important that we define rules. In another conference, I was listening to a speaker saying, today you don't allow to a car to enter in the motorway if it's not, if the car is not has no certain standard of security. Tomorrow we have to do the same for internet. You cannot allow to an internet device to connect to the network if it has not certain minimum standards of security, because it can have an impact on the other cars, other devices that are connected to the network. So I think we have, I mean, the difference that we have now compared to internet, when the internet was created, were no security issue. Now we know that there are, so the way we have to build IoT, the future network, 5G, need to take in consideration this risk.
I primarily doing the business with the Japanese customers in Japan, so that what I can tell is that what is the temperature among the Japanese companies and executives. And I agree with Ross that it's very different sector by sector. But in general, maybe because a Nikkei newspaper talk about IoT every day, now that they did last year as a big data, now that they changed the topic to the big data from to IoT. But I think that IoT, everybody is talking about IoT, that there could be the future golden arrow for their business. But at the same time, they are still wondering how they can take advantage of IoT. And I think that they take very practical approach to the IoT, just starting from what they could do by the nature of their businesses. And therefore, some more discrete manufacturing industry is more focusing on the IoT versus like a process manufacturing is not really. So it's depending on it's very different by sector. But at the same time, at least in Japan, everybody's looking at it, but not sure how to implement it yet. Which is actually, I'm wondering to ask from the other global audience that I heard that maybe Japan is kind of a more slow or maybe conservative view to IoT versus maybe like companies in the US or in other world is more proactive or more looking into taking advantage of that.
Yeah. Well, actually, when we are talking about what's the difference between ICT and IoT, Internet and IoT, the simplest answer I usually use is, ICT is you use a computer and the network, Internet, and then changing the businesses. Okay, so that's a kind of ICT deployment, IT deployment type of activity. Now IoT, what is IoT? IoT is not just connecting the things, but it's the data, right? Generated from the things, and then how the data is going to be used for the business. That's a very important part. So that's a difference. For the IoT. I understand that it's a super buzzword today, especially in Japan. But anyway, so in that sense, I really want to hear from Kajiura-san that because he's representing Keidan here, and there is a research result from a GE think tank generated. You remember, right? I mean, you understand that. So the question was, all the CEOs around the world, the question was raised, and then do you want to create the innovation by using the data? That was the question. And then the country by country in the grassroots, that was the result from a GE research. And Japan is like here, and the average is like here, and the top like there, okay? So you know that graph, right? Okay, so what do you think about that? It's wrong or it's right, or what is Japan characteristic on the utilizing the data from the CEO for the businesses? Do you think any difference between the Japan and the other countries?
I think the Japanese companies and Japanese manager does not make sense of the importance of data. United States companies, I know that the management believes only data, not the human. So that is my impression. So then the United States company uses data very well and stocks data very much, I think.
Well, thank you. Just to move on a little, coming from the university world where knowledge creation is a high priority and also collaboration across international boundaries is an extremely high priority, and embedding trust between researchers and also making sure that research into things like mentioned this morning, global health or even climate change and so on, making sure that there's a free flow of information and collaboration and the building of communities through this kind of easy access to each other and the use of the internet. And I just wondered whether you had any reflections on the limitations now because of we've heard this morning there are no international boundaries when it comes to the internet, but in fact we know there are different jurisdictions with different rules and regulations. And I just wondered whether you had any reflection on where we should go from here.
Yeah, that's a really important point about the international space and the global space discussion, because it's actually the connected space of the global and the international, nation by nation, and the single space. So we are talking about, now those are completely merged, I believe. I mean, merged in a sense that both. We have to deal with the both of the things, and especially the use of the data regulation and other things. It's very much a nation-based. Therefore, the efforts would be an international effort. So but also from technical point of view and the standard and the horizontal standardization, interoperability, and those things, it is really targeted for the global space so that it can be utilized. So the important thing is that the technology development and the standardization has to be very much transparent. Otherwise, it's a nation by nation decision is going to be necessary because it's a data, it's sometimes a personal data, it's a private data, government important data. So it's really important for those nations going to be involved on kind of a protection of the data. That's true. But at that time, then it's really, really important that the technology development, the technology standard, and the technology interoperability is going to be transparent to be understood by everybody, open.
Do you have any suggestions as to the best processes for a multi-stakeholder dialogue in order to get to that point? We don't just leave it to governments, I presume. So how do we embed a process which is going to produce positive results?
Invest in the standardization of the technology, and then try to each of the segments, because it's going to be much more complicated. For example, when I was talking to the agriculture department, they already have their own kind of a network and efforts about the standardization of their names, IDs, specifically for the experts on agriculture materials. Now, those are simply the data on the IoT space, and then it can be used for the medical health purposes now, it's really important to be, connecting those, diversity of standards to be, indirect or direct, to be connected, to be transparent, which is, kind of both of the efforts. Everybody should understand that kind of a mechanism, and then we can really work on that kind of efforts about the global standard.
I cannot agree more. And I'm thinking about the globalization, the fact that Japan is not anymore an island. The internet is like one of the point connected. I mean, the standards are the only thing that could force other country or could convince other country to implement certain level of security that at the end will benefit all the other countries. So I do not agree more.
Totally agree. I think we're in sync that this is the time for global standardisation because the boundaries don't exist anymore. And I think what needs to be supporting that is standardisation around orchestration, around policy and enforcement of that policy that allows you to create privacy and security across one network that's dedicated to the policy that's been defined.
So where are we in that process? Are we getting somewhere, or are we in stalemate, or where do you think we are at the moment?
I think, by understanding, so it's interesting that, as I mentioned, each of the segment, the industry segment, totally, used to be different and separated as a silo, but now, because of the IoT, then, it's a created the opportunity for the connecting them. As I mentioned, the medical device company now should talk to agriculture device company, and then home appliances company, and then they're working together. So I see the that kind of activity toward the IoT technology, security, and safetyness. But it really should be focused more on that sense from various multi-stakeholder views, and to consider explicitly about that issue.
Yeah, just to add a technical note to this that I totally agree with. Today, the way we protect the user, we check that the user doesn't do something wrong, like IP reputation or URL reputation, so we check that the user don't go in the wrong place. When we have to protect an IoT device, it's the way around. We check that the IoT device does what it's supposed to do. The network needs to act according to the least privilege concept. So if the refrigerator is not supposed to send email, it shouldn't be able to send email. If the refrigerator is not supposed to send SMS, it should not send SMS. If the refrigerator is not supposed to connect to a network that's not the reference network, or to do a certain pattern of behavior, should not do it. But for the network to be able to understand what the device has to do, the device producer need to explain to the network what the device needs to do. And this goes through the collaboration we were talking about. I mean, one single element of the chain cannot be sufficient. All the elements need to talk to each other. And in the case, for example, of IoT device, they need to give the profile to the network so that the network understands what the device should do to protect the device and the network itself.
And I think that's one of our challenges, because as we're going through this phase of IT, we're now beginning to connect things that were never designed to be connected to the network. And that in its own right is going to present some security challenges that we're going to need to address.
And, and also security risk for the people, because again, going a technical note, if a botnet of decide to attack through a signaling attack the network, what the network does is actually they delay the connection of the device through a methodology called Barrett axing, extended Barrett authorization Barrett. And in this way, the device cannot be connected. But what happens if the device actually is a medical device, right? So the network needs to understand that our device cannot be stopped, that there are different levels of device. There is the wearable and there is the pacemaker, right? So this is also important for the security of the people.
Yeah, that's certainly a challenge, as you mentioned as well. So when we are talking about the kind of device and the computer connected to the internet, and then we can view the kind of defining the architecture of the pieces of the elements, like the computer, network, and the switching box, and etc., and the devices as well. But now, because of the data generated on that, and then this is a raw data and anonymized data, and certain level of statistic data, and character data, text data, and the numeric data. There would be a lot of architecture on the data side as well, which has to be agreed, and then has to be designed in a very much a sophisticated way. So probably we are pretty much having the sophisticated understanding and the design of the architecture of the hardware and the network and the device area, but we are challenging a lot in near future for the architecture of the data in general.
Well, from the business point of view, the government policies or the effort that by region or country by country is just a showstopper, because every industry or every government, every company is already operate across the globe globally. In other words, there is no meaning, as everybody said, that the nation-specific procedure may help in some way for that the nationality of that people. But actually, it is very huge burden to the global economy or global enterprises. In other words, we really want the government to have a cooperative or unified work, because actually the terrorists or the threat is actually already globally unified. So I don't think that there is no make sense to do some individual or individual governmental work. So I think that this kind of international conference and international cooperation against this cybersecurity is really meaningful, and it's really from the corporate point of view, it's really meaningful, and we are looking for to be implemented.
Yes. Well, a number of you have mentioned the risk to individuals in terms of data collection, and I wondered whether you'd have any comment on the question of public trust in all this process. We know already that there have been various crises in different countries about collection of the operation of security organizations, and also the question of whether or not individual companies can be trusted by the public. And I wonder whether you see this as being a process that's now being well addressed, or is it going to get worse? And how do you think we should deal with it, the issue of the public trust?
So we think about privacy encryption, right? So we were saying this morning, everybody is in favor of encrypting the data, but people don't realize that encrypting the data actually create a security flaw in the network, because you cannot do parental control, for example. You cannot do an analysis of the data to protect the user itself. So, and it's a matter of trust. So who do you trust? You don't trust anybody, you trust just the server you connect to, but do you really trust the server you connect to? Is you connecting to that server? So, and it comes to the collaboration among the industry. There are mechanisms to combine privacy and security. You can transfer the data encrypted, but transfer through the metadata on the clear header of the data information that helps to secure the user. But this will not happen if the content provider of the server will not give this information to the network itself. So who you trust depends on do you trust your network provider, or do you trust your content provider? And how to solve the privacy issue together with the security issue is a matter of collaboration among the industries.
The technical, there is a technical part of, and then they move toward the social part, about the public trust, right? And then, the technical trust, I think, what he said, it's a really important point that, level of encryption, and also the the authentication and the authorization of to access the data, and those things are going to be carefully designed, and then which is happening, by the way. Then the web access, these days, I mean, a lot of web has to be accepting its access if the communication path is not encrypted anymore. So that's a very much kind of a technical move toward the trusted communication on the internet. And the other side of a kind of a public trust in a kind of social manner is, when the risk and the threat is in the people's mind, very much, and I fear to be connected, type of a behavior. How we can change that behavior is very much a kind of a trusted services being successful on the network. So in certain sense, I mean, when the web-based email was introduced, nobody trusted that thing, right? I mean, Yahoo Mail, Gmail, and then no way, mail, everything. In that single company, and then how they're going to use my email data. And then now everybody using it. And then, as you mentioned, it's a cloud and a little bit secure way for the exchanging the email now. And so it's a kind of a successful business model with a kind of course, a secure technology, and then also the great kind of promise about how to utilize it. Then that's going to increase the level of the trust on any of the services in the past as well. So for the future, probably the similar things. I mean, both the technological challenge and also the kind of a business challenge. Both are the two wheels for moving the trust to increase.
I think your webmail example is a good one. And there's a fine line here. If you ensure that the benefits outweigh the disadvantages, people will use it. If you look at retailers, they have an enormous amount of data on all of us, and we have concluded we're happy for them to have that because we get some benefits in return. If you just go a little bit over the line, you lose their trust, lose their confidence, and result in a situation where the downside is worse than the upside, it's very hard to recover again.
On the other side, I think security needs to be transparent. No one would like to live in a safe, right? And no one is going to enter the password 10 times to connect to the same services. So yeah, there to be trust, but also sort of transparency. And from the technology point of view, the solution we need to find need to be flexible enough. I mean, if we look at the 5G, one of the challenges will be the below 1 millisecond delay, and this is not easily if you have a multiple level of authentication in the network. So it has to be a compromise between convenience and security.
Well, trust point of view, I think that actually I understand that there are so many people that SAP as an ERP software provider knows every single company's, every single financial in detail, because we are providing ERP software, which is not actually. I mean, we provide software, but it's just provide software does not mean that we know the content of every single companies. In other words, so we have to trust somebody. So we have to just choose somebody that's trustworthy enough and make sure that the company is still trustworthy. But at the same time, it doesn't make sense to fear that that company, that information is going out of it's supposed to be, because we have to trust somebody else anyway. So in other words, I think that the fear is really sometimes, as Murray-san said, it's a kind of rootless, or people just tend to fear that they don't know. In other words, they need to know, they understand what it's really about. So the knowing is the first step to overcome the fear against IoT or anything else new.
Thanks very much. I have a feeling, though, it's not just the way the technology works or develops, it's also the way our institutions in different countries function for legislative and judicial integrity. But moving on from that, I think I'd like each of you to just think ahead 10, 15 years, just if you can, and think what are the key issues that you think might arise for the Internet of Things, which are on the horizon but perhaps are not yet clear to most of us.
I think when we realise that connecting things is just a step towards getting the data, being able to do the analytics, make better business decisions around it, and understand it is around the effective use of and secure use of data. I think that's the big change between the current state of IOE and moving into the future.
Yeah, certainly the various segments, whatever the level of the segment, the industry segments or the science segments or whatever, it's really the what IoT can achieve is the connecting them, right? And the meaning that there's going to be a hyper society, interdisciplinary society, or the innovation. I mean, creating the new area. So because whenever we have several things and then they get together, then it's intermediate things and the connected things or the brand new things are going to be invented. So it's going to be good for of course, not only the innovation and the business and creating the new services, but also the solving the existing problems on this society and this human being world. Okay, now unsolved issues can be solved. That's a possibility of when everything's going to be working together.
Your question is that what is going to rise in for next 15 years?
Well, what do you see?
What do you think might arise in 10 or 15 years' time from the logical development of what you see now? And I'm assuming that those of you here who are immersed in this on a daily basis can see a little further than the rest of us.
Well, the one thing clear is that 15 years from now, the people is still people, human is still physical. We cannot be digital. In other words, the things that change in over the next 15 years will be how you use the digital to better work for the human being or the environment. And as I said before, because digital's nature or the super fast processing, we can maximize or optimize how to use the physical things, including people and also the physical things. And the things that may not change at most will be the human being itself. How do we think about these kind of things? In other words, it is very difficult for the workers or being a professional as working for the business, and people tend to resist toward the change of our job or our nature of the job. In other words, how to educate, train, or make them shift from what we think natural right now to the new natural will be the biggest challenge that we will face in a close future.
Okay, so from a security perspective, today we still try to prevent problems. We put firewall in the network, we put IPS in the network, we try to block infection, right? In the future, with a billion of connected devices that cannot be upgraded, we will live with the constant status of infection in the network. We will have virus malware everywhere. So the way we think security and the paradigm will change from trying to shield the body to do what the human being is doing today. So we have an immune system, we have hundreds of millions of bacteria and viruses in the body. We have to control them. We have to prevent. We have to build a mechanism robust enough to avoid these viruses or infections that are endemically inside the body will actually harm ourselves. And that's what will change in the future. We have to live with the idea that we are infected, but we know how to control it.
And if you can give us your secrets on what are the new businesses that you have in mind as a result of these developments.
Well, our recognition is that we have to become a digital company ourselves. We're in the technology game, but everything we do has to be digital. I think that's our primary focus, and just helping customers through the journey, because even though only 25% of even Fortune 100 companies have got imperatives around digital now, that's going to change over the next few years. They'll recognise it, and they just need help on the journey.
From our point of view, actually, the IoT is we call IoT as a customer observation platform. In other words, if you provide some IoT or connected device or whatever to the customer, you can actually observe the customer's behavior in very single detail. And actually, you come to know that for example, what Murai-san is all about better than himself. So in other words, we can actually know the customer very in detail, so that we can also be we can just take advantage of this better customer understanding, and obviously optimize our offerings to the customers. And this is actually not our offering, but our customer, like corporate customers, like a Nissan, is able to do to their customer, which is the driver of the cars. So in other words, corporations obviously have to take advantage of this customer, the better customer understanding or better customer experiences. This is definitely one of the things.
So for us, it's not only an opportunity, I think it's a must. So to build security inside the network, to think about security in the 5G, so in the evolution of the network as embedded and very much linked to each and every element, it's a must. It's something that you cannot avoid. I mean, the network need to be resilient, need to be available. I mean, we always talk about confidentiality, integrity, and availability, but it's not all availability of the data, also of the network that's behind the data. So it's an opportunity because at the end we have the opportunity to build new solution, but it's also a must because it cannot be different in a different way.
Well, I'd like to thank the panel. You haven't finished yet, but I want to thank you. And now open it to the floor and to ask for any questions to the panel, particularly if you can, please, on thinking a bit longer term rather than the immediate technical issues. What are the social, political, economic implications of what you see happening now? And please address very difficult questions to the panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Is this on? Yep. Okay. Andrew Adams, Major University. There was a recent report that these devices, Android mobile phones, have been getting worse and worse in terms of their security, partly driven by the fact that Google generates the main operating system, and then various other people down the line are responsible for making sure they're patched and updated. How can we avoid these same issues coming in with Internet of Things devices, which are going to be even more invasive in individuals' lives than these things already are?
So the question is it going to get worse? And what do we do about it? Who would like to?
Well, I have a question to you. Getting worse and worse. What is the damages you actually got?
This contains my whole digital life, and it is vulnerable, not because I haven't kept it updated. It's vulnerable because the company that I bought this device, that very large amounts of money from, hasn't rolled out a patch to what the software manufacturer has created. So I'm running an insecure device. Now, I'm a security expert, but there's nothing I can do about it unless I root this and put Cyber3 mod on it, which itself is a security risk because I'm breaking the inbuilt security. So I'm left with a no secure solution to this. As it was said, you give people the benefits that outweigh their security risks, but we shouldn't have to take that security risk. There should be responsibility on the manufacturer to push these things downstream. How can we avoid these same issues?
Thank you very much. And this is the issue. And then there could be a two-way to approach, right? And then one is that what you have mentioned, and there is a kind of a threat, and then also the risk and the damages that can be quantified and then to be solved because it's known. Okay, once it's known and it's shared among the kind of technology designer, then it can be solved. So that's kind of optimistic way of thinking. And the other way is that the new type of a service is going to be kind of taking those information and then improve them and then getting you the benefit. Creating the more benefit. So it's a kind of a risk-benefit balance we are seeing. So in that sense, it might be like a kind of a history of the internet. Then the risk is being increased actually, right? And but the benefit also being increased. Therefore, the balance of those things, benefit and the risk, is started to be very carefully considered. It's not done yet, so it's a challenge still. But I said that those are the second opportunity because in the morning, Rod, you mentioned. Okay, Rod mentioned about the insurance thing, right? Insurance is the things that if we identify the balance of the risk and the benefit, then there could be a social way to support that kind of activity, even if you take the risk and you have programs. But if really something happened as a kind of a possibility, then there could be a way to recover it. That's insurance.
Yeah, I can comment because it's an interesting point. Is roughly only 14% of the user of the mobile device have an antivirus or anti-malware. And the infection rate worldwide range between 0.5% and 5%, depending on the geography of the place. That means that there is no awareness of the problem. So the reinfected device is not a neglectable number. We think 5% of a 10 million user network is 500,000 users, so it's not a neglectable number. So still, people don't use mobile device. Don't use antivirus on the mobile device. By the way, they're not always useful. But the point is, in the future will be even worse because you cannot expect that people will upgrade the refrigerator software every 6 months to patch vulnerability fix. And if he has hundreds or tens of devices connected through wearable, he will not upgrade all of them. No way. So from one side, we need to force manufacturer to build device according to a certain standard. This will not be sufficient. And then I think the network need to play a role. So the network need to protect the user from the device itself.
Thanks very much. Hello. Hi, my name is Pablo Quintanilla. I'm with Salesforce.com in San Francisco, a software company. So what I think is so exciting about sort of this idea of a hyper-connected world is the idea of putting the individual at the center of things, sort of enabling him or her to do a lot more than they'd be able to do in the past. So the question for you guys is this: what do you think? The other interesting idea is how government will serve the individual in the future, right? So say a word about how you think sort of government will be serving the individual in 10, 15 years. Thanks.
I think it both applies to both government and private enterprise, that this is all about delivering contextual experience, not based on who you are, but where you are, what you're doing, and making sure you're getting the service that suits you as an individual and the situation you're currently in. And I think we're talking about the benefits of that. That's probably the biggest benefit of this hyperconnectivity, to deliver contextual-based experience.
From our point of view, the government is maybe the biggest service provider to the people or the nations. We take every different type of services from the government activities. So what the government can do is, again, optimize or maximize the physical limitation of the physical services by utilizing digital maybe coordination, so that actually government does not have to rely on the physical size or the resources that they can serve to the customer, which is actually the other nations. But actually, customers can do better serve just simply by optimizing how to serve to the nationals.
Are you happy with those answers, or do you want to take it further?
I'm happy if somebody else wants to pick it up.
Okay. Yes, please.
Yes, my name is Chen, coming from Beijing, Tsinghua University. I'm very excited to hear something about what is going to happen about next 15 years. If we understand what's going to happen by next 15 years, we have to understand what happened already 5 years before. In China, people buying things through internet. The total amount by the last year is 600 billion US dollars. People spending money, more than half of the money by 1 month is through the internet. We can buy anything in China from any supplier. So my question is, what's going to happen by next 5 years? I want to buy Nissan car in China. I want to spend my money, directly send you my check to your manufacturing. I select the color, I select the style, and then you ship the car to my home. This will happen by next 5 years. My question for you guys, who is stopping it? Why not today? And how the government and the private sector can work together makes this dream becomes true as soon as possible. Thank you.
There's a challenge. Who would like to rise to it? Any takers?
I think that what you mentioned is that so-called mass customization. In other words, the mass producer, the mass factory produce on like a mass basis, but every single product out of the line is actually different and actually customized to what you want. Which is again the technology, the IT and IoT is the biggest enabler of this kind of mass customization. We saw already many of our customers, the car manufacturers or a lot of the different manufacturers already provide this kind of services. And it's depending on the market and also the segment of the industry, but it's coming. So, and I think that again, it will be enabled in close future by sector and by different industry. For example, actually cars are already kind of mass customized in many different places. But for like the shoes, or like $100 shoes, it also can be also customized already in Germany and in Japan. So I think that people, as long as the people or the customer require this kind of one for only for you, it will come soon.
Well, actually, I don't know about the 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, but one thing that the purchasing the Nissan car from Beijing is can be possible, but then also probably the air pollution regulation and all those things changed with Beijing city and other parts of the China and probably the manufacturing in Tokyo. So it's going to be adjustment. It's going to be necessary. But when it goes to the more toward the new activities, new technology about the kind of 3D printer and the digital fabrication type of manufacturing things, and then it's a little bit different story that the 3D design is going to be kind of shared among the world. It's a data. It's not a physical car anymore. But it can be produced anywhere in the world, utilizing with any materials in a local supply. And then that would be happening, and that is happening actually these days. And in that sense, and what's going to be those say the safetiness, like product liability in the sense. It's going to be who's going to be a responsibility of is that going to be a three-dimensional design? Or the selection of the materials, or somebody who printed actually and producing the material. I mean, who's going to be responsible on if something happened on that product? So that kind of things is very much on the table now to discuss. So it's including all the manufacture, not only the delivery of the completed materials around the world, across the border, but also the kind of more complicated way of manufacturing responsibilities going to be on an international or global basis. So that's what we have to challenge in many ways.
Sorry, yes, you can hand your hand up.
Yes, my name is Carlos. I am the founder of Wireski, cybersecurity company in Switzerland. My question is about scaling IoT. There are some statistics that say that we will need $120 trillion just to secure the internet in order to run IoT on it. What about finding a new architecture like blockchain, combining security at the device level and interrelate that security to the blockchain? Is some experience in the region around that? Is maybe the future?
Did everyone get that question?
Well, Yeah, there could be. It's not really the, it's still a lot of discussion. My understanding is correctly. I mean, about your question is correctly. There could be. It's not a single standard about IoT and the data, generated data, and handle that. And it's various different way, diversity of ways to handle them. But certainly, it's a really important from a security point of view that how could we encapsulate the certain item of a data and generated from IoT devices, and then then encrypt it and for the access, proper access to be ready for the proper access and other authentication, authorization to access. So those are the technology being discussed, including the identifier to put on this object. So the data being item. Type of a discussion is being studied as researchers and some of the testing environments. So probably that technology developments will be relating to that question.
Right. I've had my back over here. Is there anyone behind me that wants? Yes.
I want to ask you one question, but it's a little bit from the different point of view. Before asking the question, I should better to make my position clear. My name is Yasunobe, and I'm CIO for the one transportation company in Japan as a so-called infrastructure industry. And from my point of view, Murai Sensei said about the risk and the benefit of the IoT. Oh yes, we as a big user of the internet, we always caring about the benefit and the risk and cost. Yes, what's the benefit to our company and what will the future cost? But the biggest cost, especially in these years, which we cannot measure, is reputation risk. I mean, everyone says the internet, there is a risk or there is a threat, risk, threat. But say 2 years ago, my company was, not only my company, but many of the Japanese companies received the so-called password list attack. And at that time, many companies' web page was attacked, and I think that some data flowed out. But those data, maybe, at least in my company, it was just a name, address, and probably phone number. 20 years ago, everyone could know those data just looking at the telephone book. But at the time, what the media said, many of the Japanese big companies get the internet threat and huge private or the personal data was flown out, and there is a company list.
So
and
your question is focused on...
So who could, who should take, I need more of this kind of the social education or the social engineering concerning the risk.
Right.
And
Let me take this. Probably it's a very serious problem. I want you to, especially all the people outside Japan, I want you to understand that this is very much a Japan problem. I mean, not only Japan. Of course, it's happening everywhere. But the amount of the pages in the newspaper when the company is leaking the data, cybersecurity related issue, then probably the space of the newspaper is going to be 10 times more than other countries, okay, in this country. So that's basically the reputation risk about the kind of data risk, security. Okay, now the how we're going to solve it is one thing is that we recently changed the personal information Act slightly changed for the anonymization of the the private data. So to encourage the use of the data with the privacy in it to be anonymized and to be used. Okay, so this is a kind of from a regulation point of view to kind of create the guideline, not only the guideline but the regulation, so that the people can use the data with the privacy by modifying it to be used for the business use. So that's one of the approaches. But I think there should be another approach, is like a more toward the ADR type of ADR, alternative dispute resolution type of kind of a post-process type of things about dispute resolution things going to be necessary, because nobody ever. This is a quite new challenges that a lot of data. We're going to use a lot of data for the new things because we've never been experienced on this in the past. Probably in that kind of a model, then probably that kind of a social support for that kind of a post-dispute resolution type of organization and the process going to be necessary, which is not existing in this country yet.
Right, thank you. Please, last question. I'm beginning to understand why it's so hard to get the emails of Japanese professors from their university websites.
So my name is Kaji from Accenture. Historically, the innovation has been driven by the intellectual property and patent. But the hyper-connected world does not allow us to stick to the traditional way of innovations. What kind of impact hyper-connected world is going to provide? The journey from the protected innovation to the open innovation. I'd like to listen to your observation.
That's a very substantial question.
My opinion is that instead of relying on intellectual property as a differentiator to compete, it's going to be about speed. That those that move most quickly in a way that delivers the right capabilities to their customers, they're the ones that will win. And it'll just be the battle for today, and there'll be battle for tomorrow, and the battle for the day after. I think it's about agility.
Well, maybe the digital world will help in some different ways. One way is that, as I mentioned earlier, you can observe the customer in every single detail so that you can get a better product faster by just observing your customer right now. And second aspect is that digital will make the communication cost minimum or almost zero, so that actually it will help you to collaborate with external parties or internal parties across the globe because the communication cost is very low. And maybe the third one is that you can actually be taught by your customer. The customer may speak up what kind of product they want to you, so that actually you can open innovate with customers, not the providers. So there's many different ways that you can do that you don't do this today, but you can do tomorrow.
So the cost concept about the commodity of the digital technology is very rapid and fast, right? And therefore, when I'm thinking about the intellectual property and the learning in the past regarding the intellectual property and its businesses, it's a matter of speed, right? Because it's a very, very rapidly changing, and then creating the new services, new businesses in a kind of drastic ways. Then in that sense, then the value of the protecting the intellectual property, the concept is slightly changed, right? Maybe drastically changed. But anyway, so that kind of a timeline discussion is going to be really necessary to talk about what you have, intellectual property and the open innovation type of a discussion.
Thank you so much. My role as moderator apparently is to sum up this discussion. So I won't, but I'll just say that we've covered a lot of territory, and it's been very, very stimulating. Obviously, we have talked about how to characterize, how to think about the Internet of Things, and where it's going, we think, and what are the implications. Perhaps where we've got a little bit more work to do is the political, social, economic implications and how they will play out. And that's a huge discussion, and it's a little bit too much to cover in one session. but we have covered a lot, and I'd like you to thank our speaker and the panel for their wonderful contribution. Thank you so much.